Okay, let's dive into a topic that is, let's be honest, incredibly complex and almost always seen through a lens of pretty intense judgment: polygynous unions. But today, we're going to cut through all that noise. Our focus is going to be laser sharp on the inherent strength and really the pivotal role of the first wife. But before we go any further, I want you to just pause and think about this question for a second. What truly makes a family strong? The answer might be way more complex than the one single model that society usually holds up as the ideal. Because right at the heart of this whole thing is a really powerful idea. The first wife's character, her wisdom, how she handles pressure, it doesn't just affect her. It literally becomes the foundational blueprint for the entire family. It sets the tone for everything. Now, to really get this, we first have to kind of take apart the models we've all grown up with. We need to shift our whole perspective, moving away from one that's all about modern romance to one that's rooted in a historical purpose of, believe it or not, nation building. And when you put them side by side, the contrast is just stark. The Western ideal we all know is built around that exclusive romantic couple and valuing personal independence. But the historical model we're looking at, it had a completely different endgame. It was all about lineage, about a covenant, and at its very core, it was a strategic tool for survival and for building a community. And listen, this wasn't some fringe concept. For foundational figures like Abraham, Jacob, and David, this was the norm. In a world that was all about farming or dealing with conflict, this structure wasn't some kind of luxury, it was a necessary strategy. It meant security, it meant more hands for labor, and it meant real economic stability. So the most important thing to get here is that its strength came from interdependence, people relying on each other, which is the total opposite of our modern prize of independence. And that idea of interdependence is exactly why the first wife's role is so incredibly important. She's not just the first one there. She's the pioneer, the co-architect of this brand new, expanding world. Just think about that phrase for a second: matriarch in training. Her position is so much more than just seniority. I mean, her job is to take the family's big picture vision and translate it into the real day-to-day stuff that actually builds unity. You know, how people communicate, the daily traditions, and just the baseline level of respect. So this puts her at a massive fork in the road. The way she responds when a new wife joins the family, that one moment determines everything that comes after. Is the culture going to become one of competitive fear, or is it going to be a supportive sisterhood? It's her leadership that sets that entire tone. Okay, so trying to navigate this massive responsibility brings up one of the biggest, if not the biggest, points of friction in this whole structure: defining what is actually fair. And to do that, we have to tackle the really damaging confusion between two words: equality and equity. All right, so equality seems simple on the surface, right? It just means you treat everyone the exact same way, everybody gets the exact same thing. But equity is different. It's way more dynamic. Equity is all about responding to the unique situational needs of each person. It's about making sure everyone gets what they need to flourish, even if that means they get different things at different times. So let's make this super practical. Imagine you have two wives. One is grieving the loss of a parent, the other is in the middle of launching a brand new business. Now, if the husband gives them both 2 identical hours of his time, that's equal treatment. What happens? Well, both women are going to feel totally unsupported. The grieving wife feels abandoned and the entrepreneur feels ignored at a critical moment. But equitable treatment, that means the grieving wife gets the comfort and reassurance she needs, while the entrepreneur gets the focused strategic help she needs. In this case, treating them identically is actually profoundly unfair. So how in the world do you practice equity without it just looking like you're playing favorites? The bridge, the absolute key, is radical transparency. It requires constant, open communication about why decisions are being made. Everyone needs to understand the intent behind it all. Without that level of transparency, equity can get misinterpreted really, really fast. And that brings us to the internal work, because let's face it, even with perfect transparency, feelings of jealousy and insecurity are gonna come up. It's so important to understand these are not character flaws, they are natural, primal human responses to what feels like a threat. So what's really going on under the hood? Well, 2 key psychological drivers are usually at play. First is the fear of exposure, that deep, nagging dread that maybe you're not enough, which can lead you to try way too hard to win favor. And the second is self-deception. This is where, instead of just admitting, wow, I feel threatened, you start to rationalize it, telling yourself, oh, I'm not threatened, I'm just being observant. And that, of course, stops you from ever dealing with the real issue. And here's the kicker. Our own brains can work against us. If you have this deep-seated fear that you're going to be neglected, your brain will act like a relentless salesperson for that doubt. It's called confirmation bias. It will actively search for every tiny little piece of evidence that proves your fear is right, while conveniently ignoring all the mountains of evidence that show it's wrong.
So how do you fight back against that internal salesperson? Here are 3 concrete, powerful tools you can use. First, name the feeling. Just saying out loud, I am experiencing jealousy, creates a little bit of space so you can observe it instead of just reacting to it. Second, reframe the thought. Actively challenge that fear-based story with a more neutral, balanced one. And third, choose abundance. Consciously shift your focus away from scarcity, what you think you might lose, and onto abundance, what you can all gain by working together.
But, maybe the most profound tool of them all is this one simple mental shift. Assume success. This means you make a conscious choice to operate as if a loving, functional sisterhood is already your reality. When you start acting from that place of confidence, you stop looking for fights, and you actually start co-creating a peaceful outcome. And that strong inner work, that becomes the bedrock you need to build the family's collective power. When the whole unit is functioning with trust and a shared purpose, the practical benefits are just massive. I mean, just look at the incredible power you get from pooling everyone's skills together. You might have an educator, a tech professional, a homestead manager, a nurse, all under one roof. This creates an unbelievably rich and well-rounded home for the children who get to benefit from multiple, stable, talented, loving maternal figures. And the economic stability? It is undeniable. A multi-income household is just naturally more resilient to shocks, like someone losing a job or an economic downturn. If one stream of income dries up, the family doesn't fall apart, they pivot. It's a powerful buffer against what is often a really fragile outside world. So, when we circle all the way back to the beginning, what does this all mean for that first wife who started this whole journey? It means she is the architect of her own legacy. Her true strength isn't found in competition. It's found in collaboration. And this idea of being selfless, it isn't some forced sacrifice. It's a conscious, virtuous choice. It's a choice that ends up paying off with profound rewards, deep peace, financial security, and the kind of fulfillment that comes from building something intentional and built to last. And that leads us to our final and maybe most important thought. The ultimate goal of this entire journey is to consciously reject all those negative, limiting stories that we inherit from society. The decision to actively write your own history, to define success on your own terms, rooted in your commitment to the whole group thriving, is maybe the most profound form of agency you can have within this powerful and demanding structure.